down, let's get down to earth. Give me one more night together. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to earth. Mama, you don't want to stop. Mama, Papa, let my heart speak. Friends keep telling me to leave. Let's get down to earth. Drop it.
Test. Okay. We ready? Tell me when. Shit, I'm hung up. Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration, the Power is Within podcast. Glad you could join us today. As always, we have a small crew here tonight. We have
Bredo, 15.
Bredo.
Henry, I'm 18.
Henry, and your host, me, Mark, of course. And tonight's topic is going to be how the pandemic has affected men and women in the workplace. But we're going to start out here because we have this thing about equalism going on, that men and women are equal, or the same. I do believe we're equal in the eyes of God, but we're definitely not the same. This sameness just really, I don't quite understand where they come, where they get that at, but that seems to be the agenda today. So I found this. How long have we been here? Men and women. Fossils and DNA suggest people looking like us and anatomically modern Homo sapiens evolved around 300,000 years ago. Surprisingly, archaeology, tools, artifacts, cave art suggests that complex technology and cultures, behavioral modernity, I don't even know if that's a word, evolved more recently, 50 to 65,000 years ago. So we've been kind of modern, somewhat, or civilized to a certain degree for 50 or 65,000 years. That's interesting. Now, the women's liberation movement started back in the 60s. So that's about, that's about 60 years. And for some reason, we have a lot of men and women thinking that women can take the place of men. I don't believe that'll ever happen because I don't believe men could take the place of women either. But it seems to be a move here in the U.S. to feminize the men. I know I see a lot of feminine men, and almost like there's something like toxic masculinity in terms like this, like there's something wrong with being masculine, like it's bad. Even in schools, it's the boys are told to be more passive, to act more like the girls, to sit in the rows. And that's just not what boys do. And for years, boys are, supplicating or seeking approval of women until they get out of school. And then when they get out of school, they really don't know how to be a man unless they've had a good male role model, which are becoming more and more, scarce, almost extinct because of this agenda from the feminists or the feminism movement or whatever it is to push down masculinity and act like that there's something wrong with that. But as we see here, for 50 to 65,000 years, men have been the leaders, and that has worked pretty well. I'm not saying that women can't lead. There are outliers. But in general, this is the way it works best. And as we all know, when it comes right down to the assaulter coming in the house, the woman is not going to go down there and greet the assaulter and take care of that deal. So we have here in the U.S., we have systems set up by men that gives women the illusion that they don't need men. Well, that's as ludicrous as us saying we don't need women, because we do. Without women, we couldn't reproduce, and we would, become extinct humanity would become extinct. So I don't know what this push is all about. I think it's somewhat ridiculous. I grew up in a different time, but this is what's going on. So we're going to see tonight the effect on the pandemic, or the effect the pandemic had on men and women in the workplace. So I found this article here. Where is it at? Here it is. It is written by Sarah Jane Glenn, Julia Casson, and Amanda Novelto. All right, how COVID-19 sent women's workforce progress backward. Well, that's interesting. For thousands of years, women did not work in the workplace. Now they're out there, but yet it's good for consumerism and big business because they're spending money. I think they said women spend 75% of the money that's spent. So if we get them women out there working out of the house and spending money, it's better for the big business. It's really a push for consumerism, but it's not good for the families. Let's start out here. They call this Congress 64.5 billion mistake. Okay. The collapse of child care sector and drastic reductions in school supervision hours as a result of COVID-19 could drive millions of mothers out of the paid workforce. I think it would be a good thing. I'm not much for... See, I don't understand this. If taking care of children wasn't a career or a job, why would there be daycares? Daycare is maybe $1 billion industry, I'm not sure. Well, probably is, because they're doing the job that the mothers are supposed to do. Now, here we got these women, and the men are going along with it because men have become so passive. Instead of having the mother stay home and take care of the kids and the children learning the moral values and the attitudes and outlooks on life from the parents, they're learning it from some minimum wage daycare worker. Nothing against daycare workers, but you have no idea what she's been raised like, what she's passing on to your children. And from the ages of 0 to 7, we call that the impression period. That's when you can't consciously differentiate between what is true and what is false. So if one of the daycare workers said, "Oh, you stupid kid," well, that kid's, he's not mature enough to think, well, am I really stupid or is she just in a bad mood? No, he thinks I'm stupid because she is the authority figure. As opposed to in the home, the mother may not do that, so you wouldn't have the same impression. So these kids get this impression day after day, depending on what it is, from people you don't know, and you have no idea what they're being impressed with. And thus their personality develops through the years by these outside influences, which parents have no control over because they're in daycare, then they're in school. Excuse me. So I don't know if this is a bad thing or not. I know many women could stay home if they didn't want to drive the Escalades and have the $500,000 or $1 million home or the boat down at the lake or the second house in Florida or whatever it happens to be. I've heard many women say, "I wish I could stay home with my kids." Do they really? They could. Now, when I grew up, most people had 2-bedroom houses. We shared bedrooms with my brother, and my dad worked, and my mom did work after I got to be about 5, I think, once I started school. But they were home, and most parents were home back then. The mother was home, at least anyway, raising the kids. And if they weren't, a lot of times they would be taken to the grandparents' house. So the child was still being raised in a family situation as opposed to some daycare where they dropped them off at 6 or 7 in the morning and picked them up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. And then the kid goes to the room and plays with their electronics, and the parents don't even know the children. There's such a separation there. So I realize there are some people that have to put their kids in daycare because they're a single parent, so I'm not talking about that. So it goes on to say, this report is a collaboration between the Century Foundation and the Center of American Progress. I really don't see women working and letting someone else raise their kids as progress. I think we see the effects of it in the broken homes and the 75% divorce rate. Divorce rate being initiated by the woman. 50% of all marriages will fail, and 75% of those divorces are initiated by the woman. And maybe it's because she feels so stressed because she's working and taking care of the kids. When she gets home, it's just an idea. Okay, but she actually has 2 careers, but then the man does too because they're both working. Key findings. The COVID-19 pandemic has dealt a striking blow to a child care sector that was already failing to support all families, and 4.5 million child care slots could be lost permanently. Actually, I don't think that would be too bad. Oh, but what would the women do? They'd have to stay home and take care of their kids and live on a one income. And they say they can't do that. No, they can't do it unless they cut back on their high style living. That's part. I'm sure there are some places where you just couldn't make it on one income, but more often than not, people don't want to sacrifice anymore. They want to have all the latest gadgets, the $1,500 cell phone, the Escalade, $70,000, $80,000, or whatever it happens to be, the four-wheeler in the garage, and
The Gucci bag.
the Gucci bag, and the Prada shoes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the list goes on and on. Outdo the neighbor. And let's not say anything about all the food we're eating
Yeah.
in this abundant country. A lot of us, I think, could cut back on our eating and probably save hundreds of dollars a month, as is apparent by the 75% obese rate we have in the U.S. I mean, around here, I'd say it's probably 90%. So we live in a country where there's definitely an abundance. So why can't women stay home and take care of the kids if they choose to? I say that in most cases they could, if they were willing to give up some of their stuff, the material stuff. And what does that tell kids when they're growing up? Their parents can't spend any time with them because they got to go out there and make that money so they can buy more stuff.
And it makes them think that the money and everything else is more important. than
Exactly. That kid grows up thinking that money and stuff is more important than he is,
Yeah.
or she, whatever it happens to be.
them. Yeah.
So there were nearly 10 million mothers of young children in the labor force in 2019. This report explores how insufficient child care could affect their work, their wages, their long-term economic outcomes, and the economic recovery. The report estimates that the risk of mothers leaving the labor force and reducing work hours in order to assume caretaking responsibilities amounts to $64.5 billion per year in lost wages and economic activity. Yeah, so there you go. That's $64.5 billion that they're not going to be spending on the food industry, the $1 trillion food industry, and the industry of clothes and everything. They won't be out there spending money. So that, to me, that's probably what the big scare here is. They're not as concerned about the people as they are about the money they're going to lose in the market out there. Without both immediate and long-term action to shore up the child care infrastructure, how did we manage to get by when I was young? We didn't have child care. We had a few people to babysit. Isn't it amazing? Now we act like we can't get by without child. Well, it takes both incomes. And once again, I take it back to the point, yes, it does. I see these houses in my area. We live in a rural community here, about 50 miles outside of St. Louis. And these younger people in their 20s are building houses that are 3 times as big as the ones we grew up in our childhood. I mean, they got these 3,000, 5,000 square foot homes. And as I said, the 2 Escalades are high-priced cars out in the garage. A garage full of things. Sure, yeah, they both have to work. They have to. They have so many payments. They're in such credit card debt also. The number one debt in America is credit card debt. Fortunately, I got about $600 worth of credit card debt, and that's it. So, but that's what happens. They buy things they can't afford to impress people they don't like, that they don't even care about. And all is to sacrifice a lot of it of their children. The time they could spend with their children or spend working because they have to. Downsize is a word that modern society here in the U.S. just doesn't even seem to understand. Now, you see the Mexicans move up here. They're smart. They get a small house. There'll be 6 or 8 of them living there.
And they all pay for
they
together.
pool their
yeah.
money together, and they get.
They all got their separate cars and everything.
And what they
Living
do
nice.
is the parents are there, the grandparents. They take care of the kids while they're working. I mean, isn't that wiser? But here we got this big house, 3,000 square foot. We got a kid or 2 kids, and we're working our butts off just to pay for it. But who benefits from that? The banks, the big. How do I say? I can't think of the word. The big commercial outlets, different things like that. The people who want you consuming benefit from that. Okay, introduction and summary. 4 times as many women as men dropped out of the labor force in September. Now, why is that? Now, they're going to blame it on child care. They're not going to blame it on the fact that the women can't take the stress, the emotional stress. They don't have the emotional strength that men have. I mean, I've raised, not you, this isn't my kid here. This is our friend. And this is Henry, but I've had 6 kids. I've raised them by myself for the last 11 years. Okay, I've ran a business. I started this YouTube channel 2 years ago, the podcast 6, 7 months ago. Was it easy? No. Was it stressful? Hell yes, it was. Now, my mom helped me out some, but she was getting older, but she passed away about 5 or 6 years ago, and since then, I don't have anybody helping me. I don't have daycare. I don't have shit. I used to take you guys to the meetings. When I had a meeting, I would take the kids with me. Maybe I'd take a couple out to my mom's. Fortunately, by the time she passed away, I was able to, they were big enough that some could take care of the other ones. But, I had to work. That's what I did. I had to support all the kids. Now, I know there's other men that could do what I do, and maybe there's a woman or two out there that could do what I did, but I know there's plenty of men that could do what I did. Because men have more of an inner strength and an outer strength than women have. The women can't take that high stress for long periods of time. We're just made differently. Women can do things men can't do, but men can do things women can't do. And as I said, one of the things they can do is deal with high emotional stress, heavy workloads for long periods of time. Okay. Now they're blaming this on the lack of child. They're not saying that they're not strong enough to do it. And what is the there's nothing humiliating about admitting that, because that's what it amounts to. I mean, no more than humiliating for me to say I can't nurture a kid as well as a woman can. They just have a way with kids that I don't. I know that. And I can't have a baby. I certainly can't nurse one, although they'll probably get to where who knows, maybe in a few years they'll be doing that too. But I'm not humiliated because I can't do that, but yet women act or seem to be humiliated because they can't do what a man does, or they act like they want to make it these equal rights, or they want equal outcome. They not only want equal pay, they want equal outcome, which means, how is it equal? They want to go to work and they want equal pay, even if they can't do the same amount of work that a man does. I don't have any problem with a woman making the same amount of money as you do. If she can do the same thing, if she can do more, I'll pay her more. But what they're pushing for is the same pay, the same outcome, the same promotions, but them not doing the same amount of work.
Yeah.
I don't buy that. But right here we see this, that the women dropped out. Let me see.
My phone.
Once again, 4 times. So it's okay. Roughly 865,000 women compared to 216,000 men. This validates predictions that the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on women was greater than it was on men. Once again, this was a really stressful, hard time. Women suffered more. But they're saying it's because they didn't have child care. Well, I guess I should blame something of mine because I didn't have child care. But I'm not. You suck it up. You do what's got to be done.
And you did good, too, during the COVID and everything like that.
Actually, I had the best 2 years I ever
Yeah.
had during COVID. So, fortunate, yes, I agree. I'm grateful to God for that. Okay. And the accompanying child care and school crises would be severe. In July, in Washington Post article titled "Coronavirus Child Care Crisis Will Set Women Back a Generation." Would that be so bad? I don't think so. It'd be great for the kids if women started staying home and raising their own kids.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do that now. And then you'll have women say, "Oh, you just want to put women back. You want to put them in their place." No, I want kids raised by their mothers.
Yeah.
I mean, if we had a mother here, would she tell me that her kids could be raised better by someone she doesn't know than by her? I don't think so. And if I ask you out in the audience, if there's a woman out there, would you tell me you could raise your kid better, or some daycare worker? They would have. I can't believe a woman would say, "No, I think my child or children would be raised better by a daycare worker." I don't think so. So there you go, right there.
And that's one of the reasons, too, why children become so rebellious, because they get this mindset that someone else is giving them through daycare, and their parents are like, "I don't know why he's being like this. I thought I
Exactly.
knew him,
They become part of what they're around, and you have no idea what they are around.
Well, if they were raised by their parents, they wouldn't do that stuff either, because
Yeah.
they know they would either.
They understand their parents.
Yeah,
they
they would
know 'em.
understand.
And that's the thing. One of the reasons that kids have outbursts like that is because they don't know their parents, and they disagree with what their parents think because they have already developed a certain mindset from somebody else.
Well, I would think, too, that they want attention from their parents because they're gone from their parents all day, and then when their parents get home from work, they're too tired to do anything with them. They're
And then
short with them. They're impatient. Go ahead.
Another thing of why they're rebellious is because they know that the daycare workers or the babysitter can't do anything to them.
Exactly.
And another thing too is it's like you said, they're trying to get their parents' attention because the only time they can get it is when they're acting out.
Right.
Otherwise, their parents are working or too busy to talk to
Right.
them or something.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
parents are tired. All right, so coronavirus child care crisis will set women back a generation. Pointed out that 1 out of 4 women who reported becoming unemployed during the pandemic said it was because of lack of child care, twice the rate among men. In August, CNN ran the headline, "Working mothers are quitting to take care of their kids, and the U.S. job market may never be the same." Well, when women started to go to work was during World War II because they needed them because the men were fighting the war. Before that, they didn't work in the workplace. And then we have all these other issues of, we have human resources now. Somehow we got by without all that. And then we have these issues of sexual harassment in the workplace. I mean, a man can barely say anything to a woman. Here's how it works. If the guy's good looking and he says something to the girl, it's okay. But if he's ugly and a girl doesn't like him, it's sexual harassment. You can lose your job. I can't imagine what it would be like to work somewhere where there were a lot of women. You would have to go in there, keep your damn mouth shut, and be careful what you say. Because many people lose their jobs because of accusations which sometimes aren't even true.
And that's the thing. It's like women are flirtatious as well in the workplace,
Exactly.
Which I'm not saying the guy's like, oh, yeah, if she's going to be flirtatious with me, I'm going to do this and that. But they flirt back,
I know they
And
do.
then some guys get the wrong impression or...
Yeah. When was the
whatever.
last time you heard of a man or a woman getting fired for sexual harassment? I don't think
Never.
I'm sure it's maybe happened, but I've never heard
even
of it.
with the, I see the billboards and it says hashtag Me Too, and it's always a woman. I've never seen a man up there.
Yeah.
Ever, not once,
Yeah. Me too. I mean, granted, for thousands of years, women have been brutally assaulted by men, of course. But then on the other hand, men have been assaulted by other men too. So this has been going on for thousands of years. Now, I don't agree with any kind of physical or verbal abuse in the workplace or anywhere else as far as that goes, but I also disagree with false accusations and a woman just because she doesn't like one guy that she can say he's sexually harassing her when someone else who she's interested in says the same thing, but it's not. So how do you differentiate between the two?
And then speaking of which, Mark was telling me today, this is perfect for what we're talking about. Chris Brown got accused of sexual harassment from some girl and said that he had raped her or whatever. And he had messages of her saying, oh, I want you to do this and this. And I had a
Exactly.
great time. I want to meet you again. And then now he's I think he's trying to get her locked up because she was accusing him of something that wasn't real.
Well, another thing that people do with celebrities is if they're say for instance, we'll put it into his perspective. Most of the athletes that are 100% getting drafted, we'll say into the NBA or NFL,
Making money,
yeah, making high amounts of money, a lot of income coming in. Females that slept with them, they will falsely accuse them of rape and then get either lawsuits or they'll
I
get
know.
jail time.
All they got to do is say it.
Or like there was like the Brittany Renner, she slept with that guy. I think he was a basketball player or something like that, and she got pregnant. Now, this is what I had read. I don't know if this is true, but supposedly she won't let him see the kid anymore, and now he's got to pay a bunch of money for
Yeah.
it. But that's the thing is, it's like that's what women do. They look for someone who's higher status, and then I'm not saying all women do this, but a lot of women, or a good amount of women, sleep with these dudes and get themselves pregnant so they could take advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so easy for them
Yeah.
in the States because of this Me Too, and the courts are just really, there's really a lot of men are opting out of marriage because what is the gain? What is the point of marriage for a man in the U.S.? I don't even date in the U.S. That's why I go out of the country to date, because women are more feminine. They still appreciate men. Not that they take any shit from men or let any men abuse them, but they still appreciate the value of a man. And women here have gotten to where they don't, not all women, but a lot of women don't appreciate the value of a man because they live under the illusion that they don't need men. But let things go to hell. Let the electric go off, the Wi-Fi, the internet, everything go off. All of a sudden, they'll be looking for toxic masculinity. Do you think they're bitching about toxic masculinity in the Ukraine? I don't think so. They need toxic masculinity, or they need masculine men over there. So, that could happen here too. I hope it doesn't, but it certainly could.
Yeah.
All right. In August, CNN headline, working mothers are quitting. Okay, take care of their kids. Is that a bad thing that you're quitting to take care of their kids? I don't think so. Okay, so what? But there's not going to be as much money going in the economy. What's more important, the economy or
Or the
raising
people,
our,
yeah, the
the
raise,
kids are the future. You guys are the future of the U.S. And at the rate we're going, I don't know if we're going to have a future with all this. Some of this
Yeah,
stuff
I
that's
know what you
going on,
mean,
I'm
yeah.
telling you. All right. Okay. The report aims to give quantified answers to two questions. What might be the impact of the pandemic-induced reduction in child care options on women's employment and the U.S. economy? And extrapolating from those data, what are the possible implications for long-term gender equity, and the well-being of women and families? Gender equity. See, that's something we're really working on. Is gender equity, equal. I don't really know where they're trying to go with gender equity. I think what they mean is they think women and men should make the same amount of money in the workplace. I agree if they can do the same
Yeah.
job. Women complain, or these certain groups of women complain that men make more money. It's not fair. Well, the men are the one working the longer hours. The men are the ones climbing the high towers, doing the lineman work, the electric work. When the storms go on here and the electric goes off, it's not women out there climbing the poles in the storming night with the lightning striking, getting soaking wet. It's the men doing that. The men are doing it. The women aren't trying to get those jobs.
They go for more of the office kind
Office
of
jobs.
corporate,
They're
Simpler.
more into relationships. They don't. Now there are a few women that are successful, but most of them have been successful by their methods of persuasion. They got to the top by persuading men. Even Kamala Harris was. She said she went out with this judge for quite some time, and he helped her get up the ladder. So, I mean, that's the power and femininity right there. Persuasion. Some people would call it manipulation, but we'll use the word persuasion. And that's one of the powers they have with femininity. In the U.S., the word feminine or femininity has actually been made to be like some weakness, when in reality it is a strength. But women, so much, a lot of the women here are pushing to be like men. They want to shake your hand like men. They want to dress like men. They get their hair cut. It's amazing how they badmouth men and masculinity, but yet they want to become like men. Some of them are even having sex changes.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're doing that. I guess they are doing it. Do they have women becoming men? No, it's the other way around, isn't it?
No,
I
they
get-
have.
do they
It's
have
both
that?
ways.
It's both
Oh,
ways.
it's both
yeah.
ways.
But a lot of, I mean, there you have women becoming men, when it comes to sex change, but they also become more strength oriented or whatever,
Yeah.
something like that.
And they have to take hormones and different stuff, whatever they take. So, okay, possible simplification. Okay. Unfortunately, too many unknowns make it impossible to predict exactly how families will react to the ever-shifting landscape of public health, employment, and caregiving. Yet the lack of child care infrastructure or family-forward workplace policies that support caregivers to both provide and care for their family members, means the challenges of this moment are leading the United States toward a catastrophe. I don't think it would be such a catastrophe if the women stayed home and raised their kids. I really believe things would work out, but they're not wanting to go that way. Okay. I lost my place. Okay. Mothers will continue to shoulder the majority of family caregiving responsibilities, as they have both historically and thus far in the pandemic. Do I hear the sound of victim? Victim? Is that what I hear? No, maybe not. Okay. Mothers of color will be the most affected. This will have a significant negative effect on women's employment and labor force participation rates, which will in turn have a negative effect not only on both current and future earnings, but also on retirement, security, and gender equity in workplace and homes. Gee, but what kind of a positive effect would it have on the kids and the future of our country? The family is the nucleus of the government of the nation. What we got here right now is the breakdown of the family, because everybody's working. Look at our government now. Our government is more corrupt, blatantly corrupt, than I have ever seen since I was born in 1960. It's incredible. It's like they're Teflon. They can do whatever they want to, and they catch them, and nothing's done about it. And then the media lies continuously about this, about that. There is no accountability here. I know you could say that could be part of why we have women in the workplace, plus we have women in politics. And one of the characteristics of women, is you guys know, is they don't want to be accountable for anything. It's almost like it's always someone else's fault. It wasn't my fault. Accountability is very important in any kind of leadership role.
One thing I seen, I think it was a comedian or something, but this is a great example. It was women want equality so much that, say for instance, LeBron James switching his gender and going to play for the WNBA. Would that really be fair where he would go to the WNBA and drop 900 points on them?
Exactly.
Would it really be fair at that point?
Well, we have the swimmer. We talked about the swimmer. He was 284th ranked, and then he changed over from a man to a woman. Now he's number one in breaking records.
Yeah, there was also another one.
It kind of shows right there that maybe men and women aren't equal. Maybe they're not so same. There's no equity there.
Right.
And
There was a
Equality?
there was a UFC fighter that was a man that switched over to a woman, and he beat her so bad that she was bloody, and then all of a sudden a bunch of women and a whole community just went after him, and he was like, "Do you really think this is cool for you to change your gender and then do that?"
Yeah, I agree. But I know this swimmer, they said the coaches and the administrators and everybody's afraid to say something because they're afraid that the media or whoever will jump on them for being racist or biased or whatever.
Well, and that's the thing too. Is it's like even when they take the hormone stuff, something like estrogen, or if they're switching from testosterone to estrogen, it's still not fair because they already have the strength. They still have had the
Exactly.
strength.
I guarantee if Paulina was in that school and she was a swimmer, I'd be up her raising hell. How is that even fair? And think about this. I don't know what kind of a guy this girl, I guess he was a guy, now he's a girl. But what does that tell you about the character of a person? I mean, how could he feel proud of that when in reality it's definitely an unfair advantage? The same as if he took steroids, probably worse.
Yeah, well,
actually.
yeah,
So
seriously, yeah.
I don't see how they can allow that because he's really not a woman. No. Yeah.
Based on, biologically, yeah. 'cause-
Biologically, he's not a woman.
Yeah, there's the XY and the XX chromosomes.
Yeah,
It's not.
he's a man, which is obvious by the success he has now compared to when he was a man. So I'm not sure where they're going with that. Okay. Receptivity.
I seen this comedian. His name's Dave Chappelle, and he had just let out a new. I guess he was sitting there, spitting comedy to people on stage and everything like that. He had let out another show on Netflix, and he called it The Closer. And he called it The Closer because he's pushing more towards stuff that people don't want to be disagreed with, which is like transgender or
Yeah.
women or anything like that, or black and white people, And that's kind of how I feel with the podcast right now. It's like The Closer,
Yeah. Well, you talk about the blacks and whites. That's something else I've seen a big stink about as they're talking about this racism. These people have no idea what it was like in the 60s. You think it's nothing now compared to what it was when I grew up. I mean, it was bad. When I walked by the sheriff's office one night, and the white sheriff was taking in this black guy, and I knew him. I knew his family. I was friends with his family, beating the crap out of him with a blackjack. Nobody said anything about it. If anybody would have seen it, nobody would have said anything. It just made me scared because I didn't want him beating on my head with the blackjack. Blackjack is a little metal, like a club with
Yeah.
It's got lead in the end of it.
Like a nightstick that they carry
Yeah,
around.
except
Yeah.
it's a little short
Yeah,
thing
I
about
know.
like
It's like,
this,
yeah.
and it's round, and it's got
Yeah.
lead in the end. That's I never got hit with one, but got the mace once. But there was nothing said about that. I mean, you talk about racism. There was racism back then. It's
Real
nothing,
racism, yeah.
nothing compared to what it is now. But yet they make it into something like it's gotten worse when in reality it's so much better. We have black kids over here. We joke each other sometimes.
Yeah.
What's that black kid doing in my house?
Yeah.
He knows I'm kidding.
Call me a beaner,
They call me a cracker or whatever.
Yeah.
We just have fun with it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I always thought about this. What if we took our generation, like the newer generation, and put them back in
Yeah,
that
back in the-
generation? Do you
then they
really
really
think they're
think-
really like? What are you gonna say? Do anything you're gonna get canceled?
Yeah.
Like how is that? How is that gonna work in
I
the
know.
generation?
That's one of the major things with the cancel culture. It's like anytime if you're famous, you say anything that hurts anybody, cancel.
Sued, lawsuit.
Well,
But-
people are going to offend people. I mean, it's just part of life.
Yeah.
If you're going to grow up not thinking you're not going to get offended, you just better go live on the moon or something because it's going to happen. Most people don't offend people on purpose; they just do it. It's just the way it is. So, yeah, it's much better now than it used to be. But see, the younger people don't have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
So I understand why they think it's terrible now because even though they can look at books and read the stories about how bad it was back then,
They weren't there. In
I
the
mean, I
experience,
lived
yeah.
in towns where a black person had to leave before the sun went down. I mean, that shit actually happened. It's not like that anywhere around here now that I know of. that black people can go anywhere white people can.
Yeah.
2 towns I knew, I didn't live in the other one, couldn't go there either after. I mean, there was just a lot of things going on like that.
There was real racism.
Real racism, violent racism, yeah.
Very violent racism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was here in Missouri. It was even worse down in the South.
Yeah. And I was talking to one of my buddies the other night when I was hanging out at Mark's crib, our house, I guess you would say. I say crib, just had it. But anyway, I was hanging out at Mark's house, and we were talking about how some black people can be just as racist as some white people. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
they're really like just as prejudiced towards white people as white people are towards black
Exactly.
people. You know,
They grew up with it just like I did.
Mhm.
My dad was very prejudiced, and I was prejudiced until I was about 21 or so. And then I started boxing, or 20, yeah. I started boxing with black guys, and the same as white people. It was the fear of the unknown because I didn't grow up with any. I mean, like in school, there was 1 or 2 black guys. So I didn't know what they were like. And I like when I was back in 1970 or 71, there was a black kid here in school that used to steal my lunch, take my lunch money, bully me, and get my lunch money from me. I mean, they hated whites too. I mean, there were blacks that hated whites also. But then there was another gentleman named Rodney. He was a real friend. He's a black guy, friendly guy. Him and I were buddies. I mean, but that was the contrast there. So part of that helped me grow up to actually be more prejudiced because the one guy took my lunch money.
Speaking of which, too, I heard this story about this black man who met a KKK member. You know what I'm saying? And he ended up changing his whole mindset on what he thought. Because what the black guy did was he had his assistant call the KKK member, and they met up together. And he was just being real with him. They were having a conversation. Over time, they became friends. They would go out to dinner. The black guy would have the white dude, the KKK member, come to his house for dinner as well. And eventually the KKK member had the black guy come over to his house for dinner. And then it all led up to the dude who was in the KKK, which was the leader. He dropped out because he realized that the black man was...
Yeah. A lot of it is fear of the unknown, because you don't know what they're like, and they don't know what we're like. But really, when you sit down and you talk to people, or like with me, I would box with them and talk to them during boxing or afterwards, you find out that they have the same hopes, dreams, and fears that you do. And they're not this mystique kind of, oh, I don't know what they're like. They're different. They're different. It scares people. People are frightened. Fear is, we've seen what fear has done to our country and the whole world in this last 2 years with this pandemic. The fear has really destroyed more than the actual virus did. And actually, it's still doing it. Okay. The disastrous economic crisis precipitated by the pandemic has hit. Oh, that's quite some more disaster. Okay. Has hit child care providers especially hard. Many providers halted their services temporarily or had families drop out and stop paying. In April, the Center for American Progress estimated that as many as 4.5 million child care slots could be permanently lost due to the pandemic. This number may be an underestimate as the ongoing economic effects of the pandemic are met with insufficient federal action. They want the government to bail them out. To put that into perspective, there were roughly 9.7 million working mothers with a child under the age of 6 in 2019 before COVID-19 hit the United States. There is an average of 2 children per family in the United States. Even if we assume that each family using paid child care has 2 children under the age of 6, the loss of 4.5 million child care slots would affect at least 2.25 million families. Once again, we're back with the child care here. I mean, I don't think this would be such a bad thing myself. Well, of course, they might have to sell one of the Escalades or downsize to a $150,000 house. Wouldn't that be terrible? I mean, a 2-bedroom. Oh, God forbid, if they had 2 kids and they had to downsize to a 1-bedroom house, and the kids had to share a bedroom, and the whole family had to use 1 bathroom. Oh, jeez, we couldn't have that, could we? I mean, that's just. I'm serious. It's incredible. I mean, we have 3 bathrooms here, just because we do. We don't. We could get by with 1, but it would be tough. But yeah, now it's like they almost like if you have a girl, she has to have her own bathroom, and everybody has to have their own room. People used to share rooms.
Yeah.
Back to the Mexicans. What do? They share rooms with their brothers or sisters or whatever it happens to be. It's smarter. I mean, if you got the bucks and you got the money, Sure, go ahead and have a room for everybody, a bathroom for everybody, but what are you going to sacrifice to have that? You're sacrificing your kids, I think, when you're allowing someone else to raise your kids. Like I said, you have no idea what they're being influenced, what kind of influence they're getting in that child care. You don't know. You're
Yeah,
not
that's
there.
true.
Okay. What time is it? I'll read one more paragraph here. Okay. In addition to the need for childcare for young children, many school-age children require significant supervision and care as well. This became even more apparent as many schools reopened entirely or partially online this fall. While some high school students may be able to self-direct, elementary students require assistance navigating virtual education. The fact that a child is enrolled in elementary or middle or high school does not necessarily mean that they do not still require significant attention from a parent during school hours. Many parents are finding themselves in the position of having to provide remote learning supervision for their children, even though they are enrolled in public or private school. In fact, one recent study showed that 80% of parents plan to work and facilitate remote learning, and 90% who have both school-aged and younger will be primarily responsible for caring for both, even while meeting their work and other obligations. This situation is untenable. Well, boys, it's getting a little tough. Oh, my God. Just think if we can't watch TV for 4 hours every night. I forgot what the statistics are. The average American watches 3 to 4 hours of TV a night. Why don't they spend time with their kids? Why don't they help their kids during that time? We have become such a soft nation here. That's what I'm looking at here. Oh, things are a little tough. By God, we need it a little tough. Dig down, suck it up, and do what you need to do. We're just so used to everybody picking up the slack. Even here, they're talking about the government needs to pick up on this daycare and help out. If they don't help out, what are we going to do? Well, what did we do before the government helped out in all these situations? Everybody worked together. That would be the best thing that could happen is that the government quit helping out and people had to start helping other people. And we got community back. We have no community now. People don't know their neighbors. They lived by them for 16 years. Yeah, the Channel 4 News comes over there and the guy's been killing people and pushing them under.
Yeah, for the last.
Well,
yeah.
I didn't know Bill. He seemed like a friendly guy. We never talked much. One time he'd come over and the mailman would give him my mail and he seemed okay to me.
Yeah.
I'd never guessed he was chopping kids up.
Yeah,
And burying them under
exactly.
that.
Yeah. Seriously, no, seriously,
Yeah,
I've heard
that's
a
the
bunch
way
of
it
stories
is.
like that. You know, they don't know their neighbors. They
I
never
know.
talk to them. You
It's
know.
incredible. Yeah, we don't know. When I was a kid in the neighborhood, we lived in a court, and we knew all the neighbors. Actually, we were babysit by two of the neighbors, the Fergusons and the Kenyons. My mom would have us be babysit over there, and we knew all the neighbors, knew just about everything about them back then. Now, the same neighborhood I think that I lived in, most of those are rental houses. There's still one guy that lived there when I was a kid. He still lives in the family home, but the rest of them are, I think, all rental houses. Probably nobody knows anybody there.
Well, and that's the thing too. If it's rental place, you know, a lot of the rental places come with people that have drug addictions or something like that. It's been like that around here.
Right, transients, they come and
So
go.
they come and go, yeah, so quickly that people feel like, what's the point in getting to know them, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Okay, perspective. Parents are scrambling, and most of the responsibility is falling on women. You can tell this was written by a woman. Why is most of the responsibility falling on the women? What about the men who are out there working probably extra hours because the woman has to stay home now? And he's having to pick up the slack because of their high-end lifestyle they were living because both of them were working. What about the man? No, he's sucking it up. He's not bitching and complaining. He's doing what men do. He's doing what he has to do, what he's expected to do. Data on how parents are responding to the pandemic and the lack of childcare availability are still being collected and analyzed, and results are likely to change over time based on whether conditions improve, worsen, or stay the same. But preliminary results show that there is ample reason to suspect that the ongoing lack of childcare will have extremely negative impacts on working parents. I'm going to look and see if it's copyrighted. I don't want to do the whole thing. I don't think it would be. It's just a report. Let me see.
It would be on the very bottom.
Very last, wouldn't it? I don't see
It could
anything.
be farther down too.
I don't think it is. Well, as long as I don't do too much of it. I don't think it is, but I lost my place. But we'll stop there and we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we will shut her down. I really don't see the negative side of this. Money. You know what they're talking about? Money. That's what they're talking. The negative side is money and the great burden on women. They don't talk about the great burden on men. Who is responsible ultimately to keep the house going? The man is. If everything goes to hell and that woman can't work, the man is responsible for the family. As always, for the last 50,000 years, men have been the providers and the protectors. It hasn't changed. Right here's a good example. The women are falling down because they can't take the pressure. They have to stay home with the kids. Well, as far as I'm concerned, that's where they should be anyway. Mm-hmm. Hell with all these things. We have such a materialistic society here. Got to get more stuff. We have so much stuff that we have to build storage sheds. Those storage sheds are not for people moving. The biggest majority are because people have so much stuff they can't keep it in their 2-car garage or their basement. They have to rent a storage shed.
Well, that's the thing. It's so materialistic. It's like some people could have a good life if they went without certain things for a while. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've gone through it. We went without certain things, hot water or whatever happened to be, but it made us stronger. You know what I'm saying? It really gave us perspective, and we are appreciative for the stuff we have now,
Well, one thing I've learned in the past few weeks is the Great Depression. We went through it 100 years ago, just about 90, 95.
20s or 30s?
It was 29, so probably just a little under 100 years ago. And the kids would even work, and I don't know about the women. I didn't read too much about the women, but they
would do what they could in home.
Yeah, they would do what they could, and kids from ages 5 and up would work, and with their dad, their brothers, their sisters, everybody in the family would work, and you would never see anybody home.
Yeah, that's
and
a good point.
It was either you work or you die.
Yeah,
exactly.
As simple as that.
You survive, yeah.
Oh, just think, what would we do if we didn't have air conditioning? Mm-hmm. God forbid if you had to shut your air conditioner off because you couldn't pay all that big electric bill for that 3,000 to 5,000 square foot home. I mean, these things people just, and the schools were even air conditioning. Everything's air conditioning.
It gets so cold in there, you got to put a jacket
on.
I know,
my daughter
how it was. Yeah.
You got to wear a damn jacket in school because it's so cold. Mm-hmm. So we got kids growing up that can't handle the climate because everything is climatized. Mm-hmm. It's climate controlled. I mean, that's another reason why we have so many damn soft snowflakes here in the U.S. today. And just like this here is talking about something that's just what's so terrible. I don't think it would be so terrible if women started staying home and raising their own kids. And if people didn't worry so much about money, but yet spend more time with their kids, and the father became the number one breadwinner in the house and did what he's supposed to do instead of making the wife go. Think about this. If the woman's out there working for the man, what has she got left for the man of the house when she gets there? Mm-hmm. It's amazing how a lot of women don't want to submit to their husband. They think that's like, what do you mean submit? We're equal. I'm not submitting to no. But yet they'll go submit to a boss who's going to pay him, work him for 10, 20, 30 years, whatever, and discard him. That's it. There isn't much of a type of retirement anymore like there used to be for jobs. You can't count on that. So she'll go out there and bend over backwards for her boss at work, if it is a man, and a lot of times it is. And then she comes home for her husband. She has nothing left to give him. Mm-hmm. She has nothing left for him. A man needs to come home to a sanctuary. He needs to go out there. He's out there fighting. He's out there doing what he needs to do, getting what needs to be done for his family. He needs to come home to a place of refuge, not to a wife that's been working all day, doesn't have anything left for him. And that's basically what we have here. Just for what? For a few extra bucks. And by the time you consider, how much money do you think a woman has to make to justify taking their kid to daycare? It's going to cost them what? I don't know, let's say $10, $12 an hour. That may be cheap. Some places may be more than that. Okay, and then they got to have another car. And oh, God forbid if a woman didn't have a car. Not everybody had cars when I was a kid, just one car for the house. Okay, but how much does she have to make? And then she has, most women too, eat lunch. They don't take their lunch with them. Mm-hmm. By the time she figures gas, car, insurance, eating lunch, the clothes she has to buy to work in, is she really making any money? Mm-hmm. She would have to at least make $30 an hour in this area. But few of them do.
Yeah.
Few of them do. I don't know how they can justify working. Like I said, I'm not talking about women or men who is a single-parent household, and they have to work and they have to do something with their kids. So they have to pay for it. I'm talking about a man and a woman together, which is the optimal situation to raise kids. I mean, that is the best situation. And that's falling apart. As I said, the marriages are falling apart here because it's just not feasible. And the court has so much power in the marriage now. If a woman gets angry or gets emotional, she just goes and kicks the man out, and he's got to pay child support for the next 18, 20 years.
If they want to go to college, too.
If they want to go to college, you got to pay that, and it's just that simple. She may regret it later, but then it's too late. The court system is involved, and then she wonders when she's 30 and she got 2 or 3 kids, where's all the good men? Well, she had a good man. She just didn't want to tough it out. I mean, it's different if she's getting beat or something, but that's usually not the case.
I was talking to somebody that was working with us the other day, wasn't Claude, it was the other worker. And he was talking about how he gets online, he's dating, or he's looking for women that maybe are about his age or whatever, and they have such high demand, you know what I'm saying? And he goes, shoot, I wonder why they're still single,
Yeah.
because they want so much from a man.
They want a 6 foot tall, 6-pack abs, and 6-figure income. But what do they got to offer? 2 kids, 3 kids from different baby daddies. They're 50, 100, 150 pounds overweight. I mean, most women in the U.S. are overweight. Very few are in shape. I mean, no wonder they can't find a good man. They probably had a good man. The best time for them to get a man is in their early 20s. But they're told now, because there's a certain, I can't think of what the big business, I'll just say big business, wants them consuming. They don't want them settling down. They want them out there partying, doing the hoe phase, as they call it, I suppose, and running around. And then they get to be 29 or 30, they start to hit the wall, and then they start looking for a beta.
Yeah.
They've been out with all the chads, and they're starting to look for a provider man. And then what, they let themselves go, and then time they're 32, if they make it that far, they're overweight. I'd say the obesity rate around here is probably 90 to 95%. I mean, if you like heavy women, you're living in the right place here. But
In my personal opinion, when I was in school, and still me being just 18, the only women that are actually in shape are the women that are still in school.
Yeah. I mean, it's pitiful compared to if you don't travel out of the country, you don't notice it too bad. Now, I've heard in Miami and L.A., maybe New York, too, there's some beautiful women there. But the most part of the United States, it's just pitiful compared to other places in the world where women know the value of men. They take care of themselves. They still put makeup on. They dress. They fix their hair. They don't go out in a pair of pajamas and Crocs.
Yeah.
No makeup. Their hair put up in a ball. And it's like, what the hell? I never saw that when I was a kid, except maybe a family of poor people. But it's a common thing now. They don't think anything about it. I mean, and the guys, I don't see much different from a lot of them, too. They don't dress much better. A pair of old sweats, some old shirt with some writing on or something. They just don't. And people do judge us by how we look. It may not be right, but our first appearance, our parents, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. That's just the way it is. So it's very important how we present ourselves to the world. I think underdressing or dressing crappy, shitty, shows us a lack of self-respect. That's just my opinion, for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's true, though.
Yeah, so, well, I tell you what, I think we're going to wrap it up for tonight. Thanks for joining me, and thank you for joining me. If you'd like to get my help personally, you can contact me at my email or my website, marksinspiration.com. Leave a comment in the comment section, and if you'd like to make a donation, hit the PayPal button or Cash App. Whatever you feel the value of this was to you. And share it with a friend, and we will see you next Saturday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time